Rebecca Walsh had survived boardrooms full of skeptics, late-night deadlines that crushed weaker souls, and a divorce that tried to break her spirit. But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared her for what her own family would do to her at a Christmas dinner table. While cameras flashed and carols played softly in the background, her mother would pass her a gift-wrapped box of diet shakes with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Her aunt would loudly announce portion sizes. Her cousin would photograph her plate like evidence at a crime scene. And there, in that suburban dining room decorated with twinkling lights and fake snow, Rebecca would learn that sometimes the cruelest words don't come from enemies. They come from the people who are supposed to love you unconditionally. They come wrapped in concern, disguised as jokes, delivered with that particularly devastating phrase, "We're only saying this because we care." But on this particular Christmas Eve, someone unexpected would stand up. Someone who barely knew her would see what her own family refused to see, and everything would change. If you believe that family should mean sanctuary, not shame, and that sometimes strangers show us what unconditional acceptance really looks like, hit that like button and follow this channel. We're about to witness how one woman's worst Christmas became the night she finally found her voice. Now, let me tell you how it all began. 3 days before that dinner, when Rebecca made the mistake of thinking this year might be different. Rebecca stood in her downtown Boston apartment, phone pressed to her ear, already regretting answering the call. Her mother's voice carried that particular tone, the one that sounded sweet but felt like broken glass. "Of course you're coming for Christmas, darling. We haven't seen you since Thanksgiving, and you left so early. Your Aunt Margaret is already asking about you." Rebecca closed her eyes. Aunt Margaret, the woman who had told her at age 12 that she'd be so pretty, if only. The woman who mailed her magazine clippings about weight loss surgeries with encouraging notes. The woman whose concern felt more like surveillance. But it was Christmas, family, obligation, love twisted into something unrecognizable. "I'll be there, Mom," Rebecca heard herself say. Through her apartment window, the city sparkled with holiday lights, each one a tiny promise of joy that felt just out of reach. She worked as a senior marketing director at a tech firm, owned her own home, had rebuilt herself after her ex-husband's betrayal. She was successful by every measurable standard, except the one that mattered to her family, except the one they measured every time they looked at her body. Her phone buzzed with a text from her younger brother Danny. "Mom roped you in too, huh? At least I'm bringing my roommate Marcus this year." Buffer. Rebecca smiled despite herself. Danny understood. He'd always been her ally in that house, even when he couldn't fully protect her from their family's particular brand of loving cruelty. The next morning at work, Rebecca sat through a presentation where she pitched a campaign that would land a $2 million account. Her boss praised her innovative thinking. Her team applauded. She felt powerful, articulate, seen for her actual talents. Then her phone lit up with a family group chat. Her cousin Jennifer had posted a photo. "Getting ready for Christmas. Down 15 pounds since summer. Hashtag healthy holidays, hashtag new me." Within minutes, responses flooded in. Her aunt, "So proud of you, honey." Her mother, "You're glowing." Another cousin, "Goals." Rebecca's name wasn't mentioned, but she felt the implication like a physical weight. The unsaid comparison. The invisible measuring tape that wrapped around her body every time she entered that family sphere. She put her phone face down and returned to her computer, to the world where her worth was measured in ideas, strategy, results, where her body was just the vehicle that carried her brilliant mind. If only she could stay here. If only she never had to go back to being that girl at the dinner table, watching everyone watch her eat. Her assistant knocked softly. "Rebecca, your 2 o'clock is here." Back to reality. Back to being the version of herself that mattered in spaces that actually valued her. For now, Christmas Eve arrived with the kind of pristine snowfall that made suburban neighborhoods look like greeting cards. Rebecca pulled into her parents' driveway in Newton, Massachusetts, her stomach already tight with anticipation and dread. The Walsh family home was a sprawling colonial with a wreath on every window and lights, outlining every architectural feature. Perfect, just like they pretended to be. She grabbed the shopping bags from her trunk, carefully chosen gifts she'd spent weeks selecting. A cashmere scarf for her mother in exactly the right shade of blue. A first edition book for her father. Personalized items for each family member. Each one showing she paid attention. She cared. She tried. Danny opened the door before she could knock, his familiar grin a lifeline. "Thank God you're here. Aunt Margaret is already in rare form." He grabbed some of her bags and lowered his voice. "My roommate Marcus is in the kitchen helping Mom. He's cool, you'll like him." Former college linebacker turned software engineer. Big guy, but Mum hasn't said a word about his size. Funny how that works. Rebecca felt a familiar bitterness rise in her throat. Of course not. Men got to take up space. Men got to be big and it meant strong, powerful, impressive. Women got to be big and it meant undisciplined, unhealthy, something to fix. She stepped into the warm house, immediately enveloped by the smell of pine, cinnamon, and her mother's signature ham. And underneath it all, that familiar feeling, the walls closing in, the air getting thinner, the sense that she was about to spend the next 24 hours holding her breath. Her mother swept in from the kitchen, apron over a designer sweater set, arms extended for a hug that felt more like a performance than affection. "Rebecca, let me look at you." And there it was, the scan. Eyes traveling from face to chest, to stomach to hips and back up again. A journey that took 2 seconds but felt like an hour. The slight tightening around her mother's mouth. The forced brightness in her voice. "You look well. The city must be keeping you busy." Translation received. "You haven't lost weight. You might have gained some." I'm disappointed but pretending not to be. "I'm good, Mom. Work is great. I just closed a major account." Her mother was already turning away, the achievement barely registering. "Wonderful, dear. Come say hello to your aunt. She's been asking about you." Rebecca followed her mother into the living room, where Aunt Margaret held court on the sofa like a queen on a throne. At 65, she was still trim, still highlighting her hair, still wearing clothes a size too small to prove she could, still making it her life's mission to save Rebecca from herself. There she is. Aunt Margaret rose with outstretched arms, pulling Rebecca into a hug that allowed for a full body assessment. "Oh, honey, you're still so pretty in the face. Those cheekbones. If only..." She stopped herself, as if she'd almost said something inappropriate, when really she'd already said everything. If only what? Rebecca heard herself ask, something defiant rising in her chest. But Aunt Margaret just laughed and patted her cheek. "Oh, you know, the holidays are so hard on the waistline. For all of us. Though I've been doing intermittent fasting. Have you heard of it? I have some articles I can send you." "I'm familiar with it," Rebecca said flatly. She was familiar with every diet, every trend, every promise of transformation. She'd tried them all, multiple times, and learned the hard way that her body stubbornly remained her body, regardless of how little she ate or how much she punished herself at the gym. Danny appeared at her elbow with a glass of wine and a tall black man with kind eyes and an easy smile. "Beck, this is Marcus. Marcus, my big sister Rebecca, who is infinitely cooler than me, and will probably try to recruit you for whatever project she's working on." Marcus extended his hand, his grip warm and firm. "Danny talks about you constantly. All good things." "Well, mostly good things." His smile was genuine, reaching his eyes, and when he looked at Rebecca, he just looked at her, not at her body, not with assessment or judgment or that terrible, crushing pity, just at her, like she was a whole person. "Nice to meet you," Rebecca said, feeling something in her chest unclench slightly. Maybe having a buffer wouldn't be so bad. Maybe Danny's friend would make this bearable. She had no idea that Marcus Washington would end up being the only person in that house who truly saw her, or that he would become the unexpected catalyst for everything that came next. For now, she just sipped her wine and prepared herself for the performance, for pretending that everything was fine, for surviving another family Christmas by becoming as small as possible in every way, except the one way they wanted. Dinner was called at 6 o'clock sharp, as it had been every Christmas Eve for as long as Rebecca could remember. The dining room tables stretched beneath the weight of her mother's perfect holiday spread. Honey-glazed ham, roasted vegetables, scalloped potatoes, 3 types of salad, dinner rolls that smelled like heaven and tasted like guilt. The family gathered like actors taking their marks for a familiar play. Her father at the head of the table, already carving the ham with ceremonial precision. Her mother at the other end, orchestrating everything with the control of a conductor. Aunt Margaret to the right. Uncle Tom. Cousins Jennifer and Ashley with their husbands. Danny, Marcus, and Rebecca, seated directly across from her mother, in perfect line of sight for maximum observation. They held hands for grace, her father's voice deep and sonorous. "Bless us, O Lord, and these thy gifts which we are about to receive from thy bounty. Through Christ our Lord, Amen." Through Christ our Lord, Rebecca thought. Let me survive this meal without crying. Plates were passed, food was served, and the commentary began immediately. Her mother placed a modest portion of ham on Rebecca's plate, noticeably smaller than everyone else's. "Just a little for you, dear. I know you're probably trying to be good with all those holiday parties at work. Rebecca felt her jaw tighten but said nothing. She added vegetables to her own plate. A small scoop of potatoes. One dinner roll. Less than she wanted. Less than she was hungry for. But just right to avoid comment. Except there was always comment. Aunt Margaret leaned forward, wine glass in hand, smile fixed in place. Rebecca, honey, have you tried that new program? What's it called? The one where you track everything on your phone. My friend Linda lost 40 pounds in 6 months. 40 pounds. She looks like a different person. Different person. As if the goal was to stop being yourself entirely. To become someone else. Someone acceptable. I'm happy as I am, Aunt Margaret, Rebecca said, keeping her voice level, even as her heart hammered against her ribs. Aunt Margaret's laugh was light, dismissive. Oh, honey, no one is truly happy being unhealthy. I'm just worried about your heart, your joints, your future. We all are. We love you. There it was. The word that made cruelty acceptable. Love. Weaponized concern. Abuse dressed up as caring. Her cousin Jennifer chimed in, because of course she did. I mean, I feel so much better since I lost weight. More energy, better sleep, more confidence. Don't you want that back? Marcus's fork paused halfway to his mouth. Rebecca saw him glance between her and Jennifer, something shifting in his expression. But she was used to this. Used to defending her existence. Used to justifying taking up space. I sleep fine. I have plenty of energy for my 70-hour work weeks. And my confidence comes from landing major accounts and running a team of 12 people, not from a number on a scale. Silence fell like a stone into water. Her mother made a small sound of disapproval. Her father cleared his throat. And then Aunt Margaret, unable to help herself, plowed forward. Well, of course your accomplishments are wonderful, dear. But health is wealth, as they say. And at your age, it only gets harder. Trust me, I'm just trying to help you before it's too late. Before it's too late. As if Rebecca was dying. As if her body was a ticking time bomb that would explode if not urgently diffused. Danny tried to redirect. So, Marcus and I are thinking about starting a side business. Consulting for startups you need. But Aunt Margaret wasn't finished. She never was. You know what you should do? Come to my gym. I have a wonderful trainer. Ex-Marine. Very tough. But that's what you need. Someone to really push you. I could get you a guest pass. Rebecca set down her fork. Carefully. Precisely. Because what she wanted to do was throw it. Wanted to scream. Wanted to ask why this was always the conversation. Why every family gathering became an intervention she never asked for. I don't want a guest pass. I don't want diet advice. I don't want to hear about Jennifer's weight loss, or Linda's transformation, or anyone else's body. I want to eat dinner with my family without it becoming a referendum on my existence. Her voice was shaking now, the controls slipping. Her mother's face had gone tight with disapproval. Rebecca, there's no need to be dramatic. We're simply expressing concern. If you can't handle people who love you wanting what's best for you, what's best for me? Rebecca's voice rose despite her efforts to keep it level. Or what looks best to you? The table had gone silent. Deadly, awkward, painful silent. Her father was studying his plate like it held the secrets of the universe. Her uncle suddenly needed more wine. Her cousins exchanged glances. And then Marcus spoke. His voice was calm, measured, but there was steel underneath. I think what Rebecca is saying is that maybe she didn't come here to be made a project. She came here to be family. And family should probably feel like a safe place, not a constant criticism. Every head turned toward him. Who was this outsider? This stranger? Who dared to interrupt their family dynamic? Aunt Margaret's smile was frozen. Her eyes cold. I'm sorry, but this is a family matter. We know Rebecca. We've known her since she was born. We know what's best for her. And that's when Marcus did something that would change everything. He set down his fork, looked directly at Aunt Margaret, and said with absolute clarity, with all due respect, ma'am, no, you don't. The dining room seemed to hold its breath. Rebecca stared at Marcus, this man she'd met only hours ago, who had just stepped into a minefield that her own family had spent 38 years carefully constructing around her. Aunt Margaret's face had gone from surprise to indignation in seconds. Excuse me? I've known this girl since. You've known her body, Marcus interrupted, his voice still calm but firm. You've monitored it, commented on it, treated it like community property that everyone gets to have an opinion about. But have any of you asked her about the account she just closed? The team she manages? What makes her happy? The silence was deafening. Rebecca felt something crack open in her chest. something that had been sealed tight for so long she'd forgotten it was there. It was rage. Pure, clean, righteous rage. Her mother found her voice first. That particular tone she used when someone had violated the unspoken rules of their family performance. Marcus, I appreciate that you're trying to defend Rebecca, but you don't understand our family dynamic. This is how we show love. We want her healthy. She seems pretty happy, Marcus said, glancing at Rebecca, until she walks into this house. Danny's eyes had gone wide. He was clearly torn between backing his friend and avoiding his family's wrath. Rebecca could see him calculating, trying to decide if he had the courage to join the rebellion, or if he'd stay silent like he always had, like they'd all taught him to. Her father finally spoke, his voice carrying the weight of patriarchal authority that had always ended arguments. Son, I think you're overstepping. This is a private family matter. But something in Rebecca had shifted. Marcus's words had turned a key in a lock she didn't know existed. No, Dad, he's right. Her voice came out stronger than she expected. He's absolutely right. Every single time I come here, this is what happens. Every meal is a judgment. Every visit is an intervention. Every conversation circles back to my body like it's the only thing about me that matters. Her mother's hand went to her chest. That gesture of wounded innocence perfected over decades. Rebecca, sweetheart, that's not fair. We celebrate your achievements. We're proud of you, but we're also worried. Your weight puts you at risk for diabetes, heart disease, joint problems. I don't have diabetes, Rebecca said, her voice rising. My blood pressure is perfect. My cholesterol is textbook. I had a full physical 2 months ago, and my doctor said I'm healthy. But even if I wasn't, even if every health concern you claim to have was real, when did you decide that shaming me at dinner was medical advice? Aunt Margaret made a dismissive sound. Oh, honey, no one is shaming you. If you feel shame, that's something you need to work on with a therapist. We're just being honest. Sometimes the truth hurts. The truth hurts. Rebecca had heard that phrase her entire life, used as permission to be cruel, as if honesty without compassion was somehow noble, as if brutal frankness was love. Marcus shook his head slowly, and Rebecca saw something in his eyes: recognition. Maybe understanding. Like he'd witnessed this particular brand of family dysfunction before. The truth, Marcus said carefully, is that Rebecca is a grown woman who has built an impressive career, survived a divorce, and clearly has her life together. The truth is that she came here for Christmas, hoping to spend time with people she loves, and instead got a lecture about her body before the appetizers were even cleared. That's the truth. Jennifer's husband, quiet, mild-mannered Tom, who rarely spoke, suddenly piped up. Maybe we should just enjoy our meal and talk about something else. But the dam had broken. Rebecca couldn't stop now even if she wanted to. Do you know what it's like? She asked, looking around the table at faces that had been familiar her entire life. Do you know what it's like to walk into every family event knowing that before anyone asks how you are, they'll assess how you look? To have your own mother hand you smaller portions like you're a child who can't be trusted? To receive diet books and gym memberships as Christmas gifts while everyone else gets jewelry and gift cards? Her cousin Ashley, who'd been silent until now, shifted uncomfortably. Beck, I sent you that gym membership because I thought we could go together. I thought it would be fun. You didn't send one to Jennifer, or to Danny, just me. Because I'm the project. I'm always the project. The words were pouring out now, years of swallowed anger finally finding voice. I'm the one who needs fixing. The one who would be so pretty, if only. The one whose success doesn't quite count, because I don't look the way you think I should. Her father's voice hardened. Rebecca, that's enough. You're being disrespectful to your mother, your aunt, your cousins. They're trying to help you. Help me what? Rebecca stood up, her chair scraping against the hardwood floor. Help me hate myself? Mission accomplished. You've been helping me do that since I was 12 years old. And Aunt Margaret told me I need to watch my figure, because boys don't like fat girls. Aunt Margaret gasped, hand to her chest. That's not, I was trying to prepare you for reality. Reality, Marcus said quietly, still seated but commanding attention, is that Rebecca's worth isn't determined by her dress size. Reality is that she's brilliant at her job, kind to her family despite how they treat her, and has more grace than most people in this room. Reality is that you've all decided that her body is more important than her humanity. Danny was nodding now, something shifting in his face. Rebecca could see him wrestling with decades of conditioning, trying to find his own voice. Marcus is right, Danny said finally, his voice rough. Beck, I'm sorry. I've watched this happen your whole life. I've never said anything. I've made jokes, tried to distract, but I've never actually stood up and told them to stop. I'm sorry. Tears burned Rebecca's eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Not here. Not in front of the people who would interpret tears as proof that she was too sensitive, too emotional, unable to handle the truth. Her mother stood up, smoothing her apron with shaking hands. I think we all need to calm down. This is Christmas Eve. Family time. Let's not ruin it with hurt feelings and accusations. Rebecca, honey, if we've made you feel bad, that wasn't our intention. You know we love you. Do you? The question hung in the air like smoke. Because love doesn't feel like this. Love doesn't make you want to skip meals before family dinners. So you'll be hungry enough to eat, but not hungry enough to want seconds. Love doesn't make you rehearse conversations in your head about how you'll defend your food choices. Love doesn't make you dread Christmas. Her mother's face crumpled. For a moment, Rebecca almost backed down, almost apologized, almost retreated back into the role of dutiful daughter who absorbs the hurt to keep the peace. But Marcus caught her eye and gave the smallest nod. Keep going. You're right. Don't stop now. I'm going to go outside, Rebecca said, her voice steadier now. I need air. I need space. I need to not be in a room where my body is a constant topic of conversation. She walked out of the dining room, through the kitchen, and out the back door into the cold December night. Behind her, she could hear her mother's voice rising in distress, her aunt's indignant responses, the uncomfortable murmuring of the rest of the family. She heard Danny say something sharp, heard Marcus's calm voice cutting through the chaos. But she didn't go back. She stood on the back deck, breathing in cold air that burned her lungs, and let herself feel everything she'd been pushing down for 38 years. Inside the house, Marcus hadn't moved from his seat. He looked around the table at the faces staring back at him, with various degrees of shock and hostility. I know I'm a guest here, he said calmly. I know this isn't my family or my business, but I grew up in a house where love was conditional, where my worth was tied to performance, achievement, and meeting impossible standards. I know what it does to you, how it hollows you out from the inside. He paused, making eye contact with Rebecca's mother. You might think you're helping. You might genuinely believe that criticism is care. But what you're actually doing is teaching Rebecca that she doesn't deserve unconditional love, that she needs to earn her place at this table by changing her body. And that's not love, that's control. Aunt Margaret stood up abruptly. I don't need a lecture from someone who doesn't know us, doesn't know our family values, doesn't understand that we only want what's best for her. What's best for her? Marcus repeated slowly. Or what's most comfortable for you? The question landed like a bomb. Because that was it, wasn't it? The uncomfortable truth underneath all the concern and health talk and loving criticism. They wanted Rebecca to be smaller, because it made them more comfortable. Because her visible nonconformity to beauty standards reflected on them. Because in their world, a fat daughter was a failure of motherhood, of femininity, of family. Danny stood up too, his decision made. I'm going to check on my sister. As he walked out, his mother called after him. Danny, don't be dramatic. She's fine. She's always so sensitive. But he kept walking. On the back deck, Rebecca heard the door open. She tensed, expecting her mother's attempts at reconciliation that always required Rebecca to apologize for having feelings. But it was Danny, just Danny. He stood beside her in silence for a moment, both of them watching their breath make clouds in the cold air. I'm sorry I've never said this before, Danny finally spoke. But they're wrong. They've always been wrong. And I've been a coward for not telling them. Rebecca's tears finally fell, hot against her cold cheeks. It shouldn't have taken a stranger to defend me. Someone who barely knows me saw what my own family refuses to see. I know, Danny said quietly. I know, and I'm ashamed. But Beck, listen to me. Marcus is right about everything. You don't need to change. They do. And if they can't, then maybe we need to rethink what family means. Through the window, they could see the dining room in chaos. Aunt Margaret gesticulating wildly, her mother dabbing at her eyes with a napkin. Marcus still seated, unmoved, apparently willing to weather the storm he'd created. Rebecca felt something shift inside her, something fundamental. For 38 years, she'd believed the narrative they'd fed her, that her body was wrong, that she needed to change, that love was contingent on transformation, that standing in the cold with her brother beside her, and a stranger inside fighting her battles, she realized something crucial. The problem wasn't her body. It never had been. The problem was a family that valued appearance over substance, conformity over individuality, and their own comfort over her humanity. And for the first time in her life, Rebecca decided she was done trying to shrink herself to fit into their narrow definition of acceptable. She was done apologizing for taking up space. She was done accepting crumbs of conditional love and pretending it was enough. The question was, what came next? How do you rebuild a relationship with people who've spent your entire life trying to rebuild you? Inside the house, Marcus was asking himself the same question. He'd waded into something messy, something complicated, something that wasn't his business. But when he'd seen Rebecca's face at that table, the resignation, the hurt, the decades of accumulated small cruelties, he couldn't stay silent. He'd been that person once, the one who tried to be smaller, quieter, more acceptable to people who would never be satisfied. It took years to unlearn that particular poison, and he'd be damned if he'd watch someone else drink it while he said nothing. Rebecca finally came back inside, not because she was ready, but because the cold had become unbearable. Danny walked in with her, a protective hand on her shoulder. The dining room had descended into a tense, uncomfortable silence punctuated by the scraping of forks against plates and the occasional cough. Her mother's eyes were red-rimmed, her aunt's face was set in stone, and her father looked like he'd aged 10 years in the past 30 minutes. Marcus remained at his seat, a calm presence in the emotional chaos, his plate pushed slightly away as if he'd lost his appetite. When Rebecca entered, her mother stood immediately, hands clasped together in that pleading gesture she perfected over the years. "Rebecca, sweetheart, please sit down. Let's just forget all this unpleasantness and enjoy our Christmas Eve. I've made your favorite dessert, the chocolate mousse cake. Let's not let one little disagreement ruin everything." One little disagreement. That's what they were calling it. Decades of systematic criticism reduced to a momentary blip that could be smoothed over with dessert and forced cheer. Rebecca stood in the doorway, and for the first time she could remember, she didn't automatically move to make everyone else comfortable. She didn't sit down. She didn't smile reassuringly. She didn't apologize. "No," she said simply. The word hung in the air like a declaration of war. Her Aunt Margaret's eyes narrowed. "No? Rebecca, your mother worked all day preparing this meal. The least you can do is—" "The least I can do," Rebecca interrupted. Her voice steady now, clear now, powerful now, "is respect myself enough to not sit at a table where I'm treated like a problem that needs solving." She looked around the room, meeting each family member's eyes. "I came here hoping for something different. Every year I come here hoping it will be different. That maybe this time you'll see me as a whole person. That maybe this time my body won't be the main topic of conversation. But it never changes, because you don't want it to change. This dynamic works for you." Her father cleared his throat, that sound he made when he was about to deliver a pronouncement that was supposed to end all discussion. "Rebecca, you're making too much of this. Your mother, your aunt, they just want you healthy. Stop." Rebecca's hand went up. "Stop using health as a weapon. If you were actually concerned about my health, you'd ask about my doctor visits, my blood work, my actual medical conditions. But you don't. You just look at my body and make assumptions. You see fat and you hear unhealthy, regardless of reality." Jennifer shifted in her seat, something like guilt crossing her face. "Beck, I didn't mean to make you feel bad. I just thought, if I could do it, you could too. I thought I was being encouraging." Rebecca turned to her cousin, and her voice softened slightly, because Jennifer at least seemed to be grappling with something. "Do you know what encouragement to lose weight sounds like to a fat person? It sounds like you're not good enough as you are. It sounds like I can't fully accept you until you change. Even when you don't mean it that way. That's what we hear. Because that's what we've been taught to hear." Ashby spoke up, her voice small. "I really did think we could go to the gym together. As cousins. As friends. Then why didn't you ask me to go to a movie? Or shopping? Or to try that new restaurant downtown?" Rebecca asked. "Why is the only bonding activity you suggested the one focused on changing my body?" The question seemed to stop Ashley cold. She opened her mouth, closed it, and looked down at her plate. Because she didn't have an answer that wouldn't reveal the truth they all knew, but no one wanted to say out loud. Marcus spoke into the silence, his voice calm but firm. "Here's what I've observed tonight." Rebecca walks in, and the first thing that happens is a visual assessment of her body. Not "how was your drive?" Not "tell us about work." Just a scan to see if she's lost weight since the last visit. Then throughout dinner, her portions are monitored, commented on, compared to everyone else's. She's offered diet advice, gym memberships, and criticism disguised as concern. And when she finally says enough, she's told she's too sensitive. He looked at Rebecca's mother. "Ma'am, with all due respect, If one of your children came to you and said, "When I'm here, I feel hurt and unwelcome," would your response really be, "You're wrong to feel that way"? Rebecca's mother's face crumpled again, but this time there was something different underneath the tears. Something that might have been recognition. "I just want the best for her," she whispered. "I don't want her to struggle. I don't want her to face discrimination or health problems or embarrassment," Marcus finished gently. "You don't want to be embarrassed by having a fat daughter." The words landed like a slap. Rebecca's mother gasped, but she didn't deny it. Couldn't deny it. Because there it was, the ugly truth underneath all the concern and love and worry. Aunt Margaret stood up abruptly, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. "I don't have to sit here and be insulted in my own brother's home. Richard, are you going to let this stranger talk to your wife like this?" But Rebecca's father was staring at his wife with an expression Rebecca couldn't quite read. Something between realization and discomfort. "Linda," he said quietly, "is he wrong?" The room froze. Rebecca's mother looked at her husband with betrayal written across her face. "How can you ask me that? Everything I've done has been because I love her, because I want her to have the best life possible." "The best life," Danny said, finding his voice again. "Or the life that looks best to your friends at the country club." It was brutal. It was honest. And it was the question no one had ever dared to ask. Rebecca's mother stood frozen, mouth opening and closing, unable to form words that would deny what they all knew was true. She cared what people thought. She always had. Her perfectly decorated home, her carefully curated Christmas dinner, her children's achievements displayed like trophies. It all mattered because it reflected on her. And Rebecca's body, visible and unapologetic, was the one thing she couldn't control. The one thing that disrupted the perfect picture. "I think I need some air," Rebecca's mother finally said, her voice shaking. She walked out of the dining room without looking at anyone, and they could hear her footsteps climbing the stairs, and the sound of her bedroom door closing. The family sat in the wreckage of the confrontation. Aunt Margaret was gathering her purse, clearly preparing to leave in a huff. Uncle Tom looked uncomfortable but resigned. Jennifer and Ashley were whispering to each other. Their husbands looked like they wanted to be anywhere else. Rebecca's father sat at the head of the table, suddenly looking every one of his 65 years. "Rebecca," he said finally, his voice heavy, "I think you and I need to have a conversation. A real one. One we should have had 30 years ago." Rebecca felt tears threatening again, but she pushed them back. "Okay," she said, "but not tonight. Tonight, I think I need to go home. I think we all need some space to process what just happened here." Her father nodded slowly. "Will you come back? Tomorrow? Boxing Day lunch, just you and me?" The olive branch. The first genuine attempt at understanding she could remember from him. "Maybe," Rebecca said honestly. "I need to think about what I want from this family. What I'm willing to accept and what I'm not. And you all need to think about whether you're capable of giving me what I deserve." She looked around the room one final time. "I deserve to be loved without conditions. I deserve to eat a meal without commentary. I deserve to exist in my body without it being treated as a public forum for everyone's opinions. If you can't give me that, then maybe we need to redefine what family means to us." Danny stood up. "I'll walk you to your car." Marcus stood too. "I'll come with you. I think I've probably worn out my welcome here anyway." Aunt Margaret's voice was ice. "You certainly have." But Rebecca's father surprised them all. "Marcus," he said, his voice firm, "you're welcome in my home. You said what needed to be said. What I should have said years ago. What we all should have said." He looked at his sister-in-law. "Margaret, I love you, but you've been out of line for years. We all have. And it took a stranger to show us what we were too comfortable to see." Aunt Margaret's face went through a series of emotions: shock, anger, and finally, something that might have been shame. She sat back down heavily, her purse falling to the floor. "I was just trying to help," she said, but her voice had lost its conviction. "I know you were," Rebecca said, and she meant it. "But Margaret, your help hurt. It always has. And until you can understand that good intentions don't erase harmful impact, we can't move forward." She turned and walked toward the front door, Danny and Marcus flanking her like bodyguards. Behind them, they could hear Jennifer start to cry. Heard Ashley say something soft and consoling. Heard her father's heavy sigh. In the front hallway, Rebecca grabbed her coat. Her hands were shaking from adrenaline, from emotion, from the sheer magnitude of what had just happened. She'd confronted her family. She'd told the truth. She'd walked away from the table. Danny pulled her into a tight hug. "I'm proud of you," he whispered. "And I'm sorry it took so long. I'm sorry I didn't do this with you years ago." "You're doing it now," Rebecca said, hugging him back. That's what matters. Marcus handed her her car keys, which she'd left on the entry table. Their hands touched briefly, and she felt a spark of something: gratitude, connection, recognition. This man who barely knew her had fought harder for her dignity than her own family ever had. "Thank you," she said, looking up at him. "You didn't have to do that. You barely know me. This wasn't your fight." Marcus shook his head. "It became my fight the moment I watched them try to make you small. I've spent too much of my life watching people diminish others to stay comfortable. I'm done being a bystander." Something passed between them in that moment. Something that felt like the beginning of something neither of them expected. But for now, Rebecca just needed to get out of this house. Needed to breathe air that didn't feel like judgment. Needed to process everything that had shattered and everything that might be rebuilt. She walked out into the cold December night, Danny and Marcus following her to her car. Behind them, the Walsh family home stood with all its perfect decorations and hollow perfection. And for the first time in 38 years, Rebecca drove away feeling not guilt or shame or the desperate need to apologize, but something else entirely. She felt free. Rebecca didn't sleep that night. She sat in her downtown apartment, still in her dress from the disastrous dinner, replaying everything that had happened. Her phone had been buzzing constantly, texts from her mother, her aunt, her cousins, even her father. She didn't read them. Not yet. She needed time to process, to feel, to decide what came next. Around 2 in the morning, her phone rang. "Danny," she answered. "Can't sleep either?" he asked. "Not even close," Rebecca admitted. "I keep thinking about Mom's face, about everyone's faces, about everything that was said." "Do you regret it?" Danny asked. "Because I don't. I've been thinking about how long I've watched them do this to you. How many times I should have said something and didn't. I'm ashamed of that, Beck. But I'm not ashamed of tonight." Rebecca felt tears welling up again, but different tears this time. Not tears of hurt, but tears of being seen, being validated, being defended by someone who mattered. "I don't regret it either," she said. "I'm scared of what it means. I'm scared I've ruined Christmas, ruined our family. But I don't regret finally telling the truth." They talked for another hour, processing, remembering, acknowledging patterns that went back decades. When they finally hung up, Rebecca felt exhausted but also strangely lighter. Like she'd been carrying a weight she didn't realize was there until it was gone. Christmas morning arrived gray and cold. Rebecca made herself coffee and sat by her window watching the city wake up. Her phone showed 17 unread messages. She took a deep breath and started reading. Her mother's messages progressed through stages of grief denial, anger, bargaining, and finally, late last night, something that looked like acceptance. "Rebecca, I can't sleep. I keep thinking about what you said, what Marcus said, what your father said after you left. I'm not ready to say you're right, but I'm ready to listen. Can we talk? Really talk?" From her father, "Pumpkin, I failed you. I let your mother, your aunt, all of us create an environment where you couldn't just be yourself. I was so proud of you for speaking up last night, even though it hurt, especially because it hurt. Let me take you to lunch. Just us. Let me try to be the father you deserved all along." From Danny, "Marcus wants your number. Says he wants to check on you but doesn't want to overstep. I told him you were probably up at 2 a.m. stress baking. Was I right?" Despite everything, Rebecca smiled. She sent Danny a single text back. "Give him my number." 20 minutes later, her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered. "Hello? Hey, it's Marcus. I hope it's okay that Danny gave me your number. I wanted to check on you. Last night was intense." Rebecca found herself smiling again. That's one word for it. "I'm okay, I think. Processing. Questioning every family interaction I've ever had." The usual post-confrontation spiral. Marcus's laugh was warm. "Been there. Listen, I know this might be weird timing, but would you want to grab coffee today? I know it's Christmas, and if you have plans or if you just want to be alone, I completely understand. But if you wanted company from someone who isn't related to you and doesn't have decades of baggage with you, I'm available." Something in Rebecca's chest eased. Coffee, normal, simple, with someone who saw her as a whole person from the very beginning. "I'd like that," she said. "There's a place near me that's open on Christmas. Small Miracle in Boston. Want to meet around 11? I'll be there." They met at a tiny coffee shop in the North End, one of the few establishments open on Christmas Day. Marcus was already there when Rebecca arrived. 2 coffees on the table and a plate of pastries between them. "I didn't know what you liked," he said as she sat down. "So I got a variety. Fair warning, I'm planning to eat most of them. Former linebacker, remember? I don't do small portions." It was said so casually, so without judgment or performance, that Rebecca felt something in her chest crack open. This man, who was easily twice her size, had just announced his intention to eat pastries, without shame or apology, without making it a moral statement or a health crisis, or an opportunity for anyone to comment. Just eating, like normal people do. "Thank God," Rebecca said, reaching for a croissant. "I'm starving. I left before dessert last night, and haven't eaten since lunch yesterday." They ate in comfortable silence for a moment before Marcus spoke. "So have you heard from your family today?" Rebecca nodded, swallowing. "Texts from everyone. My father wants to have lunch. Just the two of us. My mother wants to talk. Danny's proud of me, which is nice. My aunt is apparently too offended to speak to anyone, which is honestly a relief." "And how are you feeling about all of it?" Marcus asked. It was a simple question, but no one had asked it. Not really. Everyone wanted to know if she forgave them, if she'd come back, if things could go back to normal. But no one had simply asked how she felt. "Terrified," Rebecca admitted. "Relieved, angry, sad, hopeful, maybe. I spent 38 years believing a narrative about myself, that I was the problem, that if I could just lose weight, everything would be better. My family would be proud. I'd be worthy of unconditional love. That last night, I realized the problem was never me. The problem was a family system that valued appearance over authenticity." Marcus nodded, his eyes understanding. "I grew up in a similar system. Different specifics, but same result. I was never good enough, never smart enough, never successful enough. It took me years to realize that no achievement would ever be enough, because the problem wasn't my performance. The problem was their inability to love without conditions." They talked for hours, about family, about bodies, about the weight of expectations and the freedom of authenticity. Marcus told her about his own journey, about being a football star in college, then getting injured, then gaining weight after his sports career ended, then having to rebuild his entire sense of self-worth outside of athletics and physical achievement. "The hardest part," he said, "was realizing that my worth wasn't tied to what my body could do or how it looked, that I was valuable just for existing, just for being me." It sounds simple, but when you've spent your whole life performing for approval, it's revolutionary. Rebecca felt tears in her eyes. "That's exactly it. I've spent my entire life performing, trying to be smaller, quieter, less hungry, more acceptable, and I'm exhausted. So stop," Marcus said simply. "Stop performing. Stop trying to earn love that should be freely given. Stop accepting crumbs when you deserve a feast." "Is it really that simple?" Rebecca asked. Marcus smiled. "No, it's actually incredibly hard. It means setting boundaries with people you love. It means accepting that some relationships might not survive your authenticity. It means walking away from tables where you're not truly welcome. It means choosing yourself even when it feels selfish. And you think I can do that? I think you already did. Last night, when you walked away from that dinner table, when you refused to accept one more criticism disguised as concern, when you chose your dignity over their comfort." Rebecca sat with that for a moment. He was right. She had already done the hardest part. She'd broken the pattern. She'd told the truth. Everything else was just follow through. Her phone buzzed. Her father. "Pumpkin, I'm at the restaurant. The one on Newbury Street you like. I've got a table. Will you come?" Rebecca looked at Marcus. "My dad wants to have lunch. Right now. I don't know if I'm ready." "What does ready feel like?" Marcus asked. "Because sometimes we wait for ready and it never comes. Sometimes we just have to show up scared and see what happens." Rebecca took a deep breath. "Will you come with me? Not to the lunch, but just nearby? In case I need backup? In case it goes badly and I need a friendly face after?" Marcus smiled. "I'll be at the coffee shop 2 doors down. Text me when you're done. If you need an escape route, I'll come running with a fake emergency." Rebecca laughed despite her nerves. "Thank you. For everything. For last night, for this morning, for just seeing me. That's the easy part," Marcus said softly. "You're not hard to see, Rebecca. You're brilliant and kind and stronger than you know. Your family just needed glasses." Rebecca walked into the restaurant 15 minutes later, her heart pounding. Her father stood when he saw her, looking older and more uncertain than she'd ever seen him. "Thank you for coming," he said. "I wasn't sure you would." They sat down, ordered food. And then her father did something he'd never done before. He cried. "I'm so sorry," he said, his voice breaking. "I'm sorry I didn't protect you. I'm sorry I let your mother and your aunt create an environment where you couldn't just be our daughter, where you had to be a project, a problem, something to fix." I was so focused on keeping the peace, on maintaining family harmony, that I forgot my job was to make you feel safe and loved. Rebecca felt her own tears falling. Dad, no, let me finish, he said. I've spent the last 12 hours thinking about every family gathering, every comment, every diet book your mother bought you, every time I stood by and said nothing. And I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed that it took a stranger to defend you when I should have been defending you all along. He reached across the table and took her hand. You are perfect exactly as you are. Your body is not a problem that needs solving. Your weight is not a moral failing. And if I've ever made you feel like it was by my silence, by my complicity, then I failed as your father. And I want to do better. Rebecca squeezed his hand, unable to speak around the lump in her throat. Her father continued, Your mother is devastated. She didn't sleep last night. She kept saying she was just trying to help, that she never meant to hurt you. But intent doesn't erase impact. I told her that. I told her she needs to listen to you. Really listen, without defending or explaining or justifying. She's scared you won't forgive her. I don't know if I can right now, Rebecca said honestly. I need time. I need space. I need to figure out what a relationship with her looks like if it's not built on her trying to change me. That's fair, her father said. More than fair. And I'll make sure she understands that. I'll make sure everyone understands that. Your boundaries are not negotiable anymore. They had lunch. Really had lunch. Not performing for anyone. Not managing anyone's feelings. Just father and daughter eating and talking. Her father asked about her work, her life, her apartment, her plans. He listened without commenting on her food choices. He looked at her without assessing her body. He just loved her. For the first time in as long as she could remember, he just loved her. When they finished, he hugged her tightly. I'm proud of you, Pumpkin. Not for anything you've accomplished, though those things are impressive. I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself, for demanding the respect you deserve, for teaching this old man that unconditional love means actually being unconditional. Rebecca walked out of that restaurant feeling something she hadn't expected. Hope. Real. Genuine hope that maybe, just maybe, her family could change. That maybe this painful, terrible Christmas could be the beginning of something better. Marcus was waiting at the coffee shop, reading a book. He looked up when she walked in. How'd it go? Better than I expected, Rebecca said, sitting down across from him. He apologized. Really apologized. No excuses, no justifications. Just acknowledgement and ownership and a promise to do better. That's huge, Marcus said. That's the foundation for real change. They sat together in that coffee shop as the winter afternoon faded into evening. At some point, their conversation shifted from families and pain to lighter things, favorite books, best travel experiences, embarrassing stories from college. At some point, Rebecca realized she was laughing, really laughing. The kind of deep, genuine laughter that had been absent from her life for longer than she cared to admit. And at some point, she realized that Marcus Washington, this man who'd walked into her family's dysfunction and refused to stay silent, had become important to her. Not just as a defender or an ally, but as someone she wanted to know. Someone she wanted in her life. When they finally left the coffee shop, snow had started to fall. Soft, gentle flakes that made the city look magical. Marcus walked her to her car. So, he said, hands in his pockets, looking suddenly uncertain. I know this is weird timing, and I'm Danny's roommate, and the circumstances of how we met were bizarre. But would you want to have dinner sometime? Like an actual date? Not trauma processing or family crisis management. Just dinner. Rebecca smiled, feeling something warm bloom in her chest despite the cold. I'd really like that. As she drove home through the snowy streets, Rebecca's phone buzzed with messages. Danny checking in. Her father sending a heart emoji. Her mother asking if they could talk tomorrow, whenever Rebecca was ready. But for the first time, Rebecca didn't feel the familiar anxiety that came with family messages. She felt cautiously optimistic. She felt like maybe, just maybe, the worst Christmas of her life had cracked something open, had created space for something better to grow, had shown her that she deserved more than she'd been accepting. And as she pulled into her parking spot and looked up at her apartment building, Rebecca realized something profound. She didn't need to lose weight to be worthy of love. She didn't need to change to deserve respect. She didn't need to make herself smaller to fit into someone else's idea of acceptable. She just needed to be herself. Wholly, unapologetically, courageously herself. And that was enough. That had always been enough. The months following that Christmas brought changes Rebecca never anticipated. Not easy changes. Not smooth, linear progress. but real, meaningful transformation in how her family related to her. Her mother started therapy. She called Rebecca in February to tell her that she'd found a therapist who specialized in family dynamics and intergenerational patterns. She asked me where my obsession with weight came from, her mother said over the phone. And I realized it came from my mother, who got it from her mother, who probably got it from her mother. We've been passing down this poison for generations, and I never questioned it. There were tears in her mother's voice. I'm so sorry, Rebecca. I'm sorry I made you carry that poison. I'm sorry I couldn't see what I was doing to you. It wasn't a complete healing. There were still moments when her mother made comments she had to catch and correct herself. Still moments when the old patterns tried to reassert themselves. But the difference was her mother was trying, really trying, and she was listening when Rebecca set boundaries. Aunt Margaret was a harder case. She sent a brief email in January, stilted, defensive, but containing the seeds of acknowledgement. I may have been overzealous in my concern for your health. If my words hurt you, that wasn't my intention. It wasn't quite an apology, but it was a start. Rebecca responded with grace but firmness. Thank you for reaching out. I appreciate you acknowledging that your words hurt. Moving forward, I need you to understand that my body and my health are not topics for family discussion. If you can respect that boundary, I'd love to rebuild our relationship. If you can't, we'll need to limit our interactions. They saw each other at Easter. Aunt Margaret didn't comment on Rebecca's appearance, didn't offer diet advice, didn't bring up weight once. It was awkward, careful, but it was respectful. And that was enough. Danny and Marcus's friendship deepened, which meant Rebecca saw Marcus more often. Those first few actual dates turned into weekly dinners. Weekly dinners turned into weekends together. By spring, they were officially together, and Rebecca found herself in a relationship that felt entirely different from anything she'd experienced before. Marcus loved her body unapologetically, not despite it, not with reservations, not with suggestions for improvement. He loved her curves, her softness, her strength. He told her she was beautiful in a voice that made it impossible to doubt. He kissed her without hesitation, touched her without shame, celebrated her without conditions. You know what I love about you, he said one night as they cooked dinner together in her apartment. Everything. But specifically, I love that you're finally letting yourself take up space. I love watching you walk into rooms like you belong there. I love seeing you eat without apologizing. I love that you're choosing yourself. Rebecca turned from the stove to look at him. You helped me do that. You and Danny. That night at Christmas, you gave me permission to fight back. Marcus shook his head. No, you already had permission. You always had permission. I just reminded you that you didn't need anyone else's approval to use it. Her career flourished. With the mental energy she previously spent managing her family's opinions and her own internalized shame, Rebecca threw herself into work with renewed passion. She landed 3 major accounts by summer, got promoted to VP of Marketing by fall. Her team adored her, partly because she led with authenticity and refused to tolerate workplace toxicity of any kind. She became known in her industry as the executive who built cultures of genuine acceptance, who hired for talent regardless of appearance, who shut down body shaming in meetings with swift efficiency, who made space for people to be whole humans, not just performative professionals. One of her team members, a young woman named Sarah, came to her office one afternoon in tears. My family keeps telling me I need to lose weight before my wedding. My own mother said I'd regret my wedding photos if I don't slim down first. And I'm starting to think maybe they're right. Rebecca looked at this brilliant, kind, talented young woman and saw herself at that age, believing the lie that her body needed fixing before she could have important moments. Do you want to lose weight? Rebecca asked gently. Sarah shook her head. No, I like myself. I'm healthy. I'm happy. I just want them to stop making me feel like I'm not good enough as I am. Then don't, Rebecca said firmly. Don't lose weight for wedding photos. Don't change yourself for other people's comfort. Walk down that aisle in the body you have right now. And if they can't celebrate you as you are, that's their problem, not yours. She paused, then added, I spent 38 years trying to shrink myself for my family, literally and figuratively. And you know what changed everything? The moment I decided their approval wasn't worth my dignity. Your wedding day should be about you and your partner, not about making your mother comfortable with how you look in photos. Sarah left her office with her spine a little straighter. Her tears dried, her resolve strengthened. And Rebecca realized this was part of her legacy now. Breaking the cycle, refusing to pass down the poison, creating spaces where people could exist without shame. By the following Christmas, 1 year after the dinner that changed everything, the Walsh family gathering looked different. They met at Rebecca's apartment this time, at her insistence. Her space, her rules, her terms. Her mother arrived with a beautiful bouquet and an apology. "I spent this year learning to see you," her mother finished, her voice thick with emotion. "Really see you. Not as a project or a problem, but as my daughter. My brilliant, successful, beautiful daughter who I almost lost because I couldn't let go of my own damage." Rebecca hugged her mother, feeling the stiffness that had always been there beginning to soften. It wasn't perfect. It might never be perfect, but it was honest. It was real. And it was enough. Her father arrived with Danny and Marcus, the three men laughing about something as they walked through the door. Her father had developed a genuine friendship with Marcus over the past year, often calling him for advice about how to support Rebecca better. "We brought reinforcements," Danny announced, holding up bags of takeout from Rebecca's favorite Thai restaurant. "Beck, you've been working 60-hour weeks. You're not cooking tonight." Jennifer and Ashley came together, without their husbands this time. Both of them had reached out individually over the year, apologizing for their complicity in the toxic dynamic. They'd started a group chat, just the three cousins, where they talked honestly about their family, their own struggles, and what it meant to break generational patterns. "I started therapy too," Jennifer confessed over wine that night. "Realized that my obsession with weight loss wasn't about health. It was about control, about feeling like if I could just be thin enough, I'd finally be good enough. Turns out that's not how it works." Ashley nodded. "I'm teaching my daughters different. When they ask why Aunt Rebecca is bigger than me, I tell them bodies come in all sizes and none of them are wrong. I tell them the most important thing is being kind and strong and confident. I refuse to pass this down to them." Rebecca felt tears sting her eyes. This was the change she'd hoped for but never quite believed could happen. Not just people placating her, but people doing their own work. People breaking their own chains. Even Aunt Margaret showed up, though she stayed mostly quiet. At one point, she pulled Rebecca aside. "I've been thinking about what you said last year, about good intentions not erasing harmful impact. And you were right. I spent decades hurting you while telling myself I was helping. I don't know if you can forgive me for that, but I want you to know I'm trying to do better. I'm trying to see beyond what I was taught to believe mattered." Rebecca looked at her aunt, this woman who had caused so much pain, but who was also a product of her own wounding. "Thank you for saying that," Rebecca said. "And yes, I can forgive you. I'm choosing to forgive all of you. Not because what happened was okay, but because holding on to anger was eating me alive. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean no boundaries. It means I'm letting go of the poison so I can heal." They gathered around Rebecca's dining table, the same people, but different, changed, growing. Danny stood up with his wine glass, clearly about to make a toast. "1 year ago, we had the worst Christmas dinner in Walsh family history. We said terrible things. We confronted ugly truths. We hurt each other. And it was the best thing that ever happened to us." He looked at Rebecca. "Beck, you've always been the strongest person I know. But last year, you taught me that strength isn't just enduring. It's not just surviving toxic situations with grace. Sometimes strength is saying no more. Sometimes strength is walking away. Sometimes strength is demanding the respect you deserve and refusing to accept anything less." His voice thickened. "You changed our family. You forced us to look at ourselves and see what we'd been doing. And yeah, it was painful, but it was necessary. So thank you. Thank you for being brave enough to stop protecting us from our own cruelty." He raised his glass. "To Rebecca, to courage, to second chances, to families that choose to do better." "To Rebecca," they echoed, glasses raised. Marcus caught her eye from across the table and smiled, that warm, knowing smile that said, "I see you. I'm proud of you. I love you." Rebecca felt something shift in her chest. For the first time in her entire life, sitting at a table with her family, she felt fully herself, not performing, not shrinking, not managing everyone else's comfort at the expense of her own dignity, just herself, whole and complete and enough. Later that night, after everyone had left except Marcus, Rebecca stood at her window looking out at the Boston skyline. Marcus came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist and resting his chin on her shoulder. "You okay?" he asked softly. "Better than okay," Rebecca said. "I keep thinking about last Christmas, how awful it was, how much it hurt, and how it was also the beginning of everything good that's happened since. Sometimes things have to break before they can be rebuilt properly," Marcus said. Sometimes you have to tear down the whole structure and start from scratch with better materials. Rebecca turned in his arms to face him. I never thanked you properly. For standing up for me. For seeing me when my own family couldn't. For being brave when I wasn't sure I could be. Marcus cupped her face in his hands. You were always brave. You survived 38 years in a family that tried to make you believe you were wrong just for existing. That's not survival, that's heroism. He kissed her softly. And as for thanking me, you can thank me by continuing to be exactly who you are. By taking up space. By refusing to shrink. By showing other women that they don't have to earn the right to exist comfortably in their own bodies. Rebecca leaned into him, feeling safe and seen and celebrated. I love you, she said, the words coming easily now, without the fear that used to accompany any vulnerability. I love you too, Marcus said. All of you, exactly as you are. The months continued to unfold with continued growth and occasional setbacks. Her mother slipped up sometimes, catching herself mid-comment about food or bodies or health. But she apologized now. Actually apologized and course-corrected. Her father became her biggest champion, shutting down any remaining family members who tried to resurrect old patterns. Danny and Marcus started their consulting business, and Rebecca helped them with marketing strategy. The three of them became an unlikely team, the sister who learned to fight for herself, the brother who learned to be an ally, and the man who taught them both that love means seeing people fully and celebrating them completely. Rebecca's career continued to soar. By the following summer, she was recruited for a chief marketing officer position at a Fortune 500 company. During her final interview, the CEO, a woman in her 60s, asked her what she thought was her greatest strength. Rebecca thought about it for a moment, then answered honestly, my greatest strength is that I've learned to value myself regardless of other people's opinions. I've learned that my worth isn't tied to my appearance or to being palatable or to making other people comfortable. And that's made me a better leader, a better colleague, and a better human. I create spaces where people can be authentic because I know what it costs to spend your life performing for approval. The CEO smiled. You're hired. When can you start? Rebecca's influence spread beyond her immediate circles. She started writing articles about workplace inclusion that went viral. She gave talks at conferences about body acceptance and authentic leadership. She became a voice for women who'd spent their lives being told they were too much, too fat, too loud, too ambitious, too anything. One woman wrote to her after one of her talks, I'm 45 years old, and I've spent my entire life on diets. I've missed beach vacations, avoided family photos, and turned down opportunities because I thought I needed to lose weight first. Your talk made me realize I've been waiting for permission to live my life. Permission that was never going to come from outside myself. Thank you for giving me permission to stop waiting. Rebecca framed that letter and kept it in her office. A reminder of why her painful Christmas confrontation mattered. A reminder that her story wasn't just about her. It was about breaking cycles that trapped countless women in the same prison of shame and self-hatred. 2 years after that transformative Christmas, Rebecca and Marcus got engaged. He proposed on a beach in Maine, in front of dozens of strangers, making a public declaration that she was the most beautiful woman he'd ever known, and he wanted to spend his life celebrating her. She said yes through happy tears, and they celebrated by eating lobster rolls and ice cream without a single comment about calories or portions or guilt. Planning the wedding brought its own challenges. Her mother gently suggested she might want to get in shape for the dress shopping. Rebecca shut it down immediately. Mum, we've talked about this. My body is not a problem that needs solving before major life events. I'm getting married in the body I have. If you can't support that, you don't need to come dress shopping. Her mother apologized immediately. You're right. I'm sorry. Old habits. You're beautiful exactly as you are. And I'm honored to help you find a dress that makes you feel as beautiful as you are. They went dress shopping together, Rebecca, her mother, Ashley, Jennifer, and Danny, who insisted on coming and had surprisingly good taste. Rebecca tried on dresses without anxiety, without shame, without the voice in her head saying she'd look better if she just lost weight first. And when she found the dress, a stunning ivory gown that hugged her curves and made her feel like a goddess, her mother cried. You're so beautiful, her mother whispered. Not, you'd be beautiful if, or you'll be beautiful when. Just beautiful. Right now, as you are. I'm sorry it took me so long to see it. The wedding was everything Rebecca had never let herself dream of because she thought weddings were for women who looked different, who took up less space, who fit conventional beauty standards. But Marcus had made it clear from the beginning. This wedding was a celebration of their love, their journey, their commitment. And Rebecca Walsh was going to walk down that aisle in her body, wearing her dress, radiating confidence and joy without apology. The ceremony took place in a garden in late spring, flowers blooming everywhere, sunshine filtering through trees. As Rebecca walked down the aisle on her father's arm, she looked at the faces of the people she loved. Her mother, crying happy tears. Danny, grinning proudly. Her cousins, supportive and genuine. Her colleagues from work. Her friends who'd supported her through the divorce and the family drama, and the journey to self-acceptance. And at the end of the aisle, Marcus, looking at her like she hung the moon, like she was the most beautiful sight he'd ever seen, like loving her was the easiest thing in the world. Later, during the reception, Rebecca stood to give a speech. It wasn't traditional for the bride to speak, but Rebecca had never been very traditional. "I want to thank everyone for being here today," she began, "for celebrating Marcus and me, for supporting our love. But I also want to talk about something that might seem out of place at a wedding, but matters to me deeply." She looked around the room. 3 years ago, I attended a family Christmas dinner that almost destroyed me. I was criticized, judged, and shamed for my body by people who claimed they were doing it out of love, and I almost accepted it. I almost believed that their inability to accept me was somehow my fault. She found her mother in the crowd, saw her dabbing at tears. But something shifted that night. Someone stood up for me, someone who barely knew me but saw my humanity when my own family struggled too. And that gave me the courage to stand up for myself, to demand the respect I deserved, to stop accepting conditional love and start requiring the real thing. She looked at Marcus. This man taught me what unconditional love looks like. He taught me that I don't need to earn affection by changing my body, that I'm worthy of celebration exactly as I am, that taking up space isn't selfish, it's my birthright. She turned back to the crowd. "So if you're here today carrying shame about your body, your weight, your appearance, I want you to know you're not alone. I want you to know that shame is taught, not inherent, and what was taught can be unlearned. You deserve to exist comfortably in your body. You deserve love without conditions. You deserve to take up space without apology." She raised her glass. "To love that celebrates, to families that choose to do better, to second chances and new beginnings, and to every person who's ever been made to feel like they're too much. You're not. You're exactly enough, exactly right, exactly perfect as you are." The room erupted in applause, but Rebecca also saw tears, saw recognition, saw people touched by words they needed to hear. Later, a woman she didn't know approached her. "I'm Marcus's aunt," she said, "and I just want to thank you. I've struggled with my weight my whole life, and my family treats me exactly like yours used to treat you. Your speech gave me courage to set boundaries, to stop accepting cruelty disguised as concern. Thank you for being brave enough to share your story." Rebecca hugged this stranger who understood her pain. "You deserve better," she whispered. "Demand it. Don't wait for permission. Just demand it." As the night continued, Rebecca danced with her new husband, with her father, with her brother, with her friends. She ate wedding cake without guilt. She laughed without restraint. She took up space on the dance floor without worrying about how her body looked moving. She just lived, fully, authentically, joyfully lived. And it was everything. 3 years after the worst Christmas dinner of her life, Rebecca Walsh stood in her body, the body her family had tried to shame into submission, the body she'd spent decades trying to shrink, the body that had become a battleground for other people's issues, and she realized something profound. This body had carried her through grief and triumph, through heartbreak and healing, through confrontation and growth. This body had survived a family that tried to diminish it. This body had built a career, found love, created change. This body was strong and capable and beautiful, not despite its size, not in spite of its curves, but because of everything it had endured and overcome, because of the life it had lived, because it was hers. And as she looked around at the faces of people who loved her, really loved her, without conditions or reservations, Rebecca felt something she'd been chasing her whole life. Peace. Complete, bone-deep peace with herself. The journey hadn't been easy. The confrontation had been painful. The rebuilding had taken time and tears and tremendous courage. But standing there in her wedding dress, in her body, in her truth, Rebecca knew without question that it had been worth it. Every difficult conversation, every boundary set, every moment of choosing herself over other people's comfort. Worth it. All of it. Rebecca Walsh's story didn't end with a magical transformation where she lost weight and everyone lived happily ever after. because that would be the wrong story. That would be the story her family wanted to tell, where the problem was solved by her becoming smaller. Instead, her story ended with a transformation much more powerful. A transformation of mindset, of family dynamics, of what love actually means. She learned that her worth wasn't negotiable, that her body wasn't a problem requiring solutions, that she deserved love and respect exactly as she was. And in demanding that respect, she gave her family the opportunity to grow, to break their own chains, to become people capable of offering genuine, unconditional love. Not everyone who starts this journey will have a family willing to change. Some families are too broken, too committed to their toxic patterns, too unable to see beyond their own damage. And that's okay, because the real victory isn't changing your family. The real victory is changing yourself, is deciding that you matter, that your dignity matters, that you deserve better. If Rebecca's story resonates with you, if you've ever been made to feel like your body is wrong, like you need to change to deserve love, like taking up space is somehow selfish, please hear this. You are not the problem. You never were. Your body is not an apology waiting to be made. Your weight is not a moral failing. Your appetite is not shameful. Your existence is not conditional. You deserve to eat without commentary, to exist without assessment, to live without the constant pressure to become smaller, quieter, more acceptable. And if the people in your life can't offer you that respect, you have every right to walk away from tables where you're not truly welcome. Share your thoughts in the comments below if this story moved you. Let us know if you've experienced similar family dynamics or if you're on your own journey to self-acceptance. And subscribe to this channel for more stories about women who refuse to shrink, who demand the respect they deserve, and who transform pain into power. Rebecca's Christmas from hell became her liberation. Your transformation is waiting too. You just have to be brave enough to say enough and mean it.